Good morning. It is 11:11 on Wednesday. Today is March 10th, and it is also the 26th day of Adar. We are in the month of Adar, and we are closing in on the end of this month. So we're going to talk a little bit about the next month. We're going to talk about spring because we are in the final days of the winter season. So that's exciting. Isn't it exciting to have the promise of spring and the promise of new life, the promise of new hope? It's amazing. So we're going to jump into that today. We have a lot to talk about. I'm very excited. So first, we're going to be marching into a new month of Nissan in 4 days. 4 days. There's 4 days left of winter, and we're going to be doing that. The day shifts, the month shifts on March 14th. So next week, we'll be moving into a new month and a new season, and it's very exciting. So last week, we talked a lot about God's cycle of blessing. And so if you didn't catch that one, I highly recommend it. I'm literally going through so much of this book, and I'm telling you, there's gold in here. There's so much. I'm going to share some more today. I'm super excited about. So last week we talked a ton about God's cycle of blessing, and we're going to, that's kind of the overarching theme of being aligned. And that's why it's so important to understand our Hebrew roots and the alignment, because it's when we're in alignment that we have blessing, that we're in a line for blessing. It's simple, right? But it's so powerful. And it's not simple when you didn't learn it or when you don't understand it. So here we go. I love this. God wants us to develop a mindset of first fruits in everything that we do, and everything that we think, and everything that we do. So in all these areas of our lives, our money, our time, our attention, these are all ways that we experience his blessing, that he will multiply those things when we give those to him. That's why we practice Sabbath. That's why we practice the Rosh Chodesh, the first day of each month, also as a Sabbath. I talked about that a lot in the last one. So remember that this is simple. Out of alignment equals curse. So it's so funny how we take out how God determines things, and they're taken, and what is created by the devil, by evil, is this huge thing about being cursed. No, being cursed is being out of alignment. When you're in alignment, you will experience God's blessings, and whatever that is. And it makes me kind of think of when someone says to you, "What is your definition of success?" It's different for everybody. Not everybody wants to make $1 million. Not everybody wants to have 1 million followers on some social media platform, right? What is it to you? And I think it's the same thing of what is blessing to you. For me, man, I think about, when I really think about it, I think of peace. I think of connection. I think of connection to family, to friends. I think of when you're in alignment with what God is calling you to do. He's given you passions. He's given you talents, right? He's given you all these things. And when you're using them, especially for him, you know that there is something effortless that happens. Not that it's easy. No, I'm not saying that. But there's some kind of energy that happens when you're aligned with that. It's awesome. Okay, so the principle of honoring God with our first fruits still applies today, just like it did in biblical times, just like it did in Jesus's time. And it is what sets us apart. When the Bible talks about being holy, that just means set apart, right? It's what sets us apart. It's what makes us different. It's how we're in the world, but not of the world. We need to be set apart. We need it to be different. So I love that we're entering into spring for so many reasons. For 2021, there's a lot of promise in spring. We have all gone through quite a year of 2020. When we started this group last year, we had no idea what we were entering into, right? And what a powerful thing it has been to be a part of this mastermind, to be able to be connected. So the month of Nissan is the beginning of spring. I love this because it's literally the ultimate deliverance. we're aligning with the ultimate deliverance. We're aligning with the month that the Jews were liberated from Egypt. So it's the most amazing liberation of bondage in history. And and we are aligning with that this month. So we get to align with it every year, right? And so every year you're going to be in a different place. So what is God bringing you out of this time, this year, 2021? So there's so much power in this. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but God literally changed the order of the months because of that experience. It was so powerful that the Egyptians they lost their power over God's people, right? And so he aligned the months to reflect this moment. So every month after this month now is counted from this month. So 1, 2, kind of reminds me of how we count BC and AD. Like every year that we get to count is a year after Jesus. We're reminded of that. No coincidence that in the months it's the same. Every month is a month since we got free, 2 months since we got free, and on and on. It's so powerful. I love that. It's the greatest miracle of history. We're going to be talking a lot about that this month. Guess we get to align with this deliverance. We get to align with the parting of the Red Sea. There's so much in this month that we're moving into. So counting of the months is a constant reminder of our deliverance. So we're no longer enslaved. We are free. And this is to connect us to the promise of the abundance that we have in Christ, in God and Christ. And this is a powerful thing against a poverty mindset. It's here. What we're talking about, it's here. You have been delivered, and you get to align this month with the greatest deliverance this world has ever seen. It's so amazing. So I wanted to start, I'm going to jump into a little bit of our guide. If you haven't gotten this yet, I'm going to put a link below, but you can find this on Amazon. I will put a link though in the comments below so you can see that where you can get the book, because I can't recommend it enough. And we're going to be doing one for every year. So every year we're going to be doing it because it's the kind of thing it's a workbook. It's one we want you to write in. We want you to experience it and take it with you. It has all the months are here, all the months and what they mean, and gives you a place to really write out stuff. As we do this every week, right? We meet on Wednesdays to talk about these things, and we want you to have the guide. So we will do that every year. And every year we'll add a little bit more and a little bit more. So I'm super excited. So this was our first one, and I couldn't be more proud of it, really. We worked really hard, and Dan worked exceptionally hard and did such a good job. I can't wait to jump in. So I love this. This is a quote from a gentleman named Chuck Pierce, who I love. I also highly recommend his book, A Time to Advance. I've learned so much from him, but here's a quote from him. It says, "The Bible teaches that the sun, moon, and stars are positioned by God for a purpose, and he arranged them in the heavens to establish his time in our lives." So as you begin to discover God's purpose for each month, I would say to ask you to pray for these things, to transform our present thinking into a Hebrew mindset. I pray this all the time. Help me to see God through your worldview, through your perspective, to establish new patterns of weekly, monthly, and yearly cycles of alignment. The more that you do this, the more it becomes a pattern in your life. The more, like, this will be our 4th time celebrating Passover. So excited for that. Ask God to reveal his design for walking in his timing for advancement. That's a big one, isn't it? We want this advancement. We're working towards things, whatever that is, and to be really surrendered to his timing. Key. So key. Strengthen your connection to his blessings of increase, multiplication, and destiny. As we are more connected to those things, we'll not only be able to experience them, we'll be able to recognize them when they happen, when they come. And finally, to take authority over any false agreements in your life and empower you to speak aloud his truth with boldness and authority. We've talked so much about the power of life and death that's in our tongue, right? And when we take that authority over these false agreements It will empower you to speak aloud these truths. So powerful. So I'm excited to jump in. I'm going to jump in a little bit to this month of Nissan, and I wanted to first share this. Is understanding the importance of the first fruits teaching. And what we do is the first day of the new month, we treat as a Sabbath, however that looks for you. There's no rules around Sabbath other than it's a day to surrender fear, anxiety, worry, doubt. It's a day to worship God. It's a day to connect to your people, to yourself, to God, to your spouse, to your kids, whatever that looks like for you. And by holding a new month celebration, we are declaring before anything else that we will joyfully celebrate the Lord our God. And that first fruit principle applies today. As we honor God with the first fruit of our time is set apart and made holy, and we're positioned to walk in the blessings. And I love this in Isaiah 66:23 in the Complete Jewish Bible. It says, every month on Rosh Chodesh and every week on Sabbath, Shabbat, everyone living will come and worship in my presence, says Adonai. It's there. It's in Isaiah. What an amazing picture that in the new heaven and earth, all those who love God, both Jew and Gentile, will come together to worship in his presence. And we even included in here the Hebrew prayer. The prayer for Rosh Chodesh is, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given the days of Rosh Chodesh, to his people Israel for remembrance. And we have it in Hebrew, if you want to attempt it, Barakato Adonai Elohonu, Melech Haolam Shene San Roshi Shodashim Le Amo Yisrael Lezi Karon. I'm learning it. I want it memorized, right? But we have it there. Practice it. Practice it. I probably butchered it. I'm sure I don't have the right, accent, but I'm doing my best. So we're going to move into thriving in the seasons, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So daily life in Israel and everywhere else was largely influenced by things beyond human control, right? Namely seasons and weather. We know that. If you've lived in Texas, or you were in Texas in the last month, boy, do we know that. But everywhere, right? Everywhere we know that there's no controlling the seasons or the weather. At least we hope not. Anyway, sidebar. God created the seasons to teach us two things: that he controls the timing of events, and two, that his promises are always true. How cool is that? So he created the seasons with that in mind, and he divided a year into 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and autumn. And the function of these natural weather cycles illustrate a process of aligning our minds, hearts, and actions with his design in order to enjoy his promised blessings. So in Genesis 8:22, it says, so long as the earth exists, sowing time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease. Sounds like a promise, right? Sounds like a promise. So a natural season represents one of the 4 major divisions of the calendar year and is determined by the Earth's yearly revolution around the sun. A spiritual season depends on the extent to which our lives revolve around the sun, but around the sun, around Jesus, right? In Ecclesiastes 3:1, it says, for everything there is a season, and a right time for every intention under heaven. We all know that verse. And I know that verse actually pops into my mind often, to know that for every time there is a season. There's even a beautiful song that was written about that, right? In the 60s. Time, everything, turn, you know that song? So anyway, so the scriptures specifically mention winter, spring, summer, and autumn. You might be surprised to know that the 4 seasons are never mentioned, only 2. Autumn, is the Hebrew stav. It's only mentioned once, and it's in the Song of Solomon as a reference to the time of winter rains. And in spring, aviv is mentioned twice. And in both instances, they denote a stage in ripening of barley as opposed to a particular season, which does happen in the month of Nissan. So it's really awesome. There's so much good stuff in here. And I wanted to get to this. The seasons, though, they have an incredibly spiritual purpose. They do. They have an incredibly spiritual purpose. How many of you have ever heard of C.S. Lewis? C.S. Lewis, amazing. If you have not read any of his seminal teachings and books on Christianity and the Christian faith, I highly recommend. And there's one in particular that I read. I think it was the first book of his that I read, and I was a young Christian. And a lot of it went over my head, but it was the very first, I guess, connection that I had to a spiritual battle, of understanding a spiritual battle that I was entering into. The book, The Screwtape Letters, he imagines a correspondence between a chief demonic tempter named Screwtape and his apprentice. So this is so powerful. And I love that Dan put this in here. Amazing. So at one point, Screwtape comments, every chapter is a letter that he's writing to his nephew to teach him how to mess with Christians on the earth. I'm telling you, it's quite chilling, honestly. But at one point, he comments on the horror of the same old thing. So remember, everything that they do, it's the opposite. So he calls God the enemy. And he's talking about the horror of the same old thing. So it's inverted, right? It's the opposite. So according to the demon, the contempt of familiarity is this. One of the most valuable passions we have produced in the human heart, an endless source of heresies in religion, folly in counsel, infidelity in marriage, and inconsistency in friendship. So there's so much here. But the demons and the dark forces, they cannot produce anything. They can only pervert it. God produces everything. He creates everything. And all they can do is pervert it, right? So he wants to give heresies in religion, right? Falsities. He wants to put folly in counsel. So if you're going to be seeking wise counsel, it ends up not being wise, right? Infidelity in marriage, it's the opposite, right, of what God intended. And inconsistency in friendship. So Screwtape goes on to further explain this. And I'm going to read this right from the book, and it's a lot. So just go with me. The humans live in time and experience reality successively. So to experience much of it, therefore, they must experience many different things. In other words, they must experience change. And since they need change, the enemy, which is God, what Screwtape calls God, has made change pleasurable to them, just as he has made eating pleasurable. But since he does not wish them to make change an end in itself, he has balanced the love of change in them by a love of permanence. He's balanced that, a love of change and a love of permanence. Okay, first of all, that really jumped out at me. How many of us struggle with change? How many of us does that go into a level of mental health, emotional health? So powerful here, you guys. This is what God intended it, for there to be a balance in change and permanence. This just makes me appreciate grief recovery even more, I'm telling you. But I'm going to go on. He has contrived to gratify both tastes together in the very world he has made by that union of change and permanence, which we call rhythm. Okay, this was a mind blow to me. So he is saying that God intended us to, it's kind of like we have the seasons that are the same every year, but there's change every year. But we get to have a rhythm of things. And I believe this is part of why God is so big on doing things like repetitively, creating those rhythms, having things that you don't falter on. You set aside time with him and you don't let anything else come in its way. Isn't that our ultimate goal with family time? Isn't that what we attempt to do? And how important do we feel when our spouse, or if we are a child, when our parents keep that time sacred and valuable? That's what God is calling us to do. And there's a balance in that, so that as we experience life, we grow, we change. We're changing every day. We're growing, we're aging every day. Our kids are, my daughter is 16. She's working, she's driving. How did that happen? Right? It's going to happen, right? But he gives us the tastes, those things together in that union of change and permanence, which we call rhythm. I've never heard it put this way. I mean, C.S. Lewis is brilliant. So consequently, God gives them the seasons, each season different, yet every year the same, so that spring always is felt as novelty, yet always it's the reoccurrence of an immemorable, immoral, I don't know that word, but of a something theme, of a consistent theme, right? Immemorial.
Immoral?
It's immemorial.
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 Meaning
That's it.
timeless.
Meaning timeless. Thank you. I have Dan here. Everybody needs a Dan. I'm serious to help me. But it's timeless. It's a timeless theme. So when I read C.S. Lewis, I need to have like Google here so I can go, what is this word? So immemorial is timeless. So it's a novelty, yet always a reoccurrence of a timeless theme. How cool is that? So it's true. Everything about spring, every year, it's a novelty. You get to watch the things that were planted begin to bud and begin to grow. Man, Lewis has got it exactly right. We're glad it's spring, but we're also glad it's not always spring. And in this way, the beauty of each season illustrates the beauty of the great designer who created all seasons. So amazing. So the Jews, who were influenced by Greco-Roman civilization, they divided the year into the 4 seasons, and they renamed them according to the original Hebrew name of the month, which the season began. So winter is Tevet, spring is Nissan, summer is Tammuz, and autumn is Tishri. And that's how they do their seasons. All of this is in here, you guys. It's so powerful. I mean, I could just sit on this Screwtape for a while. There's so much in here to dive down deep into. I love just understanding that God balanced the love of change by a love of permanence. That to me just explains so much. So if you are a person who has a really hard time with change, I would, submit to you that there's stuff in there that there's a deep-rooted belief, fear that's connected to fear, that's connected to trauma, that's connected to something, because God wants you to have a balance in it. We love to have the things that we do, our traditions, and God is big on traditions, but he's also big on growth. He's so big on wanting you to not be in bondage and wanting to see you grow and see you mature and to see you fly, right? So amazing. So, so the 4 seasons, I'm going to jump into the spring here. And then we're going to look a little bit at in the month of Nissan before we close out. Man, time flies when we're talking about this. Okay, so we're moving out of Adar, out of winter, and moving into the season of spring. And it's the beginning of the barley harvest. It's one of the most important months as it begins. This Passover happens in this month. The entire month really is like a prolonged festival. It's that a month of celebration. It's the month of redemption. It's the beginning of miracles, and it's the settling of your future course. We're aligning with the month the Israelites were delivered from Egypt. Amazing. So here's a little more information on what I touched on earlier about the Hebrew year originally began in the month of Tishri. That's when we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, right? It's the Jewish New Year. I know when I first started learning this, I was like, why would the New Year start in the 7th month, right? And it used to start there. But when God initiated Passover, think about that. The first Passover was literally the night that the Jews fled Egypt, right? That's when they put the blood on their doors and God passed over them. They left at midnight that night. They got the heck out of Egypt. And he placed them into an annual cycle of redemption and commanded that Nissan be marked at the head of the months. In fact, the first commandment given to the Hebrews as they prepared to leave Egypt was, this is in Exodus 12:2, you are to begin your calendar with this month. It will be the first month of the year for you. That was his first commandment, amazingly. So ever since then, the Hebrew years are still numbered from Tishri, but the months are numbered from Nissan. So you don't have to be confused about that. That's why. And it makes perfect sense when you understand this, right? So the Jewish New Year literally still begins at the start of the 7th month, which is also an awesome month. It's sort of like you get to have, every month there's something so powerful. So we're going to move through all these 3 months are so amazing of spring. Oh my gosh, when you think about it, you go from leaving Egypt through the Red Sea into the next month. The month we're going to be moving into, Ayar, is the month that represents the time in the desert or the wilderness with God and how all that he was showing us there. And then in the month of May, the month of Sivan, it's going to be when we celebrate God going into bringing his people into the promised land. And that we're going to be talking so much about in our spring coaching that's about to start. So powerful. So what we're going to be doing as we jump into that is the counting of the Omer. And I'm going to come back to that because I wanted to talk for a minute about the month of Nissan, because that's the month that we are entering into. Is the month of Nissan in 4 days. So I like to prepare us for that, right? That's what we do on Wednesday. So this month is connected to the tribe of Judah, which means praise. The month of Judah, it's a strong tribe, right? The alphabet is Hey, it's Hei, and the picture is wind, breath, and praise. That's the alphabet letter that it is connected to. The constellation that this is connected to is Aries, which represents the ram or the lamb. Also, we're going to learn that this is when Isaac was given as a sacrifice. And we know that the ram came in at the last minute to be the sacrifice, which all of these things are what? A foreshadowing of Jesus, right? So in Genesis, excuse me, is when Leah conceived. She had a son and said, "This is the time I will praise Adonai." Therefore, she named him Judah, praise Judah. And that was the end. She stopped having children after that. There's a blessing of Jacob and of Moses in here. Shoot, I'm sorry. I swallowed something wrong. Breathe. Okay. The purpose of the month. This is the month that Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. It's dedicated to thanking God for his deliverance. So as you pray over this month, declare the fullness of your harvest is being secured and that every seed you sow will prosper in new ways. So powerful. It's so amazing to me how different my mindset is coming into this month, this time, this year. During the Passover month, we will stand on our promised land and we are preparing to enter into a new season of inheritance. So invite God to deliver you from anything that might hinder you from entering into that. whatever comes up, write it down, keep a journal, pray over it. It's also a season to war for your covenant promises. In faith, declare the freedom that you have in Jesus and embrace the miracles that await. Every prison door that has helped you captive is being opened. Do you believe that? Every prison door that has held you captive is being opened. Pray for God to reveal those doors and declare that you are passing through them. Spring is a beautiful illustration of repentance. It's emerging from the dead of winter and positioning yourself to flourish. And it starts here. It's a mindset. It starts here. It's so important. And I'm super excited because what we discovered last year in doing this is when we discovered the Omer. And we discovered what God did with his people when he brought them into the desert. So we call it the desert. It's also called the wilderness. And there's so much there. And I'm trying to find my Omer. Here we go. Okay. And I love this. Okay. Oh, I passed it. Sorry. Oh dear, I can't find it. Darn it. So I'm going to look in my book. Here we go. I opened right up to it. Awesome. Okay, so I have bigger print on my computer, so I'm going to need this. Okay, so we're going to be moving into this counting of the Omer, and I love this because we're going to look at what God, this is what God did with his people in the deserts. How cool is it to align ourselves with how God was counseling them? So when they left Egypt, they knew who God was. They knew this God, and they knew that he was their deliverer. And we know that they go through all kinds of stuff, right, to get to the desert, namely the parting of the Red Sea, which we're going to delve into a lot in this month. But when he had them in the wilderness, that whole time, it's so amazing how deceived we are about these things. You think of the desert and the wilderness as this time, like I remember first learning about it and thinking, oh, what a terrible time, right? You're in the desert, you're in the wilderness. But it's actually the time when God is coming to you closer than ever and revealing his true nature. He was revealing who he was, so they wouldn't just know head knowledge, but know him. Connection, heart connection to him. Know, the knowing. It's a whole different experience. So each of the 7 weeks that lead from Passover, when they left Egypt, to entering into Pentecost, which is when they were given his word from Moses, giving the 10 Commandments, which is what we celebrate on Pentecost. Each of these 7 weeks correspond to an emotional attribute of God. And they're then further divided into 7 days. And that compromises 49 days of counting. So each week there is a topic. And then each day of that week, you dig deep into the topic. Guys, this is brilliant. It's brilliant. The 7 weeks between Pesach, which is Passover, and Shavuot, which is Pentecost, are dedicated to examining and refining these 7 emotional attributes. Okay? So those are love, discipline, compassion, endurance, humility, bonding, and sovereignty. And I'm going to tell you, it's amazing to learn. It's not about like I went into this thinking, oh, I'm going to be so convicted and where I fall short. I fall short in all these areas. I was so amazingly what's the word? I was surprised because every week what I discovered was that God was meeting me to show me his. It wasn't about where I'm falling short. It was about understanding to a deeper level what God was wanting me to understand about his character. Kind of like I've shared with you guys before, when I went through grief recovery, I was 10 years sober. I was about 8 years old as a Christian. And I was going through the divorce of my parents. And when I went through the grief recovery program and I learned about how to listen without judgment, without minimizing, without comparing, just that element of it, I remember realizing this is the heart of God. God is not judgment and telling me to compare and minimize. He's meeting me where I am. And I remember my whole walk with him completely changed when I went through that time. And it's an understanding of that. And I felt last year was the first time I went through the county of the Omer, and I couldn't even take it all in, honestly. And but what I took in just completely changed. Again, my understanding of God. So much of what we know has been taken out of context. It's been what God teaches about sin, what God teaches about all of these things, churches, religious, legalistic, all these things have honestly perverted it. And there's a way of understanding. And this is what God was showing his people while he was with them. And we know he gave them manna every day, right? We know he took care of all their physical needs. But oh my gosh, what he was teaching them about him. So I'm so excited to go through this with you guys, to share with you the experience that we've had and to take it to another level this year. So I'm going to put the link. I can tell you the link is the same every season, but we change it, right? Because we change it to a new season. So selfcaresoulcaremastermind.com is the link, and you can sign up to join us. It's going to be 7 weeks. It's 52 days. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that number 52 in our next week's session as well, because it's a very powerful number. And it turned out to be 52 days because we're literally going to kick off the spring session on Friday, March 26th. Saturday is the beginning of Passover. So Friday night will be a Shabbat, and we're going to go live on Friday. I was talking to Judy about possibly doing like a Friday late afternoon so we can usher in Shabbat with you guys and pray and do all that. And we can usher that in. And then Saturday begins Passover. And then we start counting the Omer the day after Passover starts. So we'll literally start counting that Sunday. And we have an app to share with you guys so we can all be on the same page and count together. We'll be working through, we're going to be, everybody will be in a group coaching. We'll meet. You can have the choice like we've always done of a Tuesday evening or a Thursday morning time. Judy will be doing her live meditations every day, Monday through Friday, that will anchor us and connect us deeper to what we're learning. And let me tell you, we're going to be delving into those things, like the first week delving into love and this is how it works. So for each thing, so love, right? Love has the love of love. It has the discipline of love. It has the humility of love. Like all of the things, all of the 7 attributes are in each thing. So amazing. It's so amazing. Yeah. God is the ultimate life coach, right? So this is how he met with his people. How cool. And I hope that you want to jump in with us as we experience this together. So Self-Care Soul Care Mastermind is our group. You can jump in and we will be doing, let me see if there's anything else. Well, the other things are, we always do special things that you'll receive in the mail. We love to give little gifts and everything we can do to be connected. We love that we're able to connect online, right? It's a total gift. It's an amazing gift. But we also want to go an extra mile as much as we can to over deliver so that we can feel truly connected and bonded. So we do everything we can to help facilitate that. So excited. So I'm actually going to be going live with Judy sometime today, a little bit later today, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But I gave you guys a great overview. So hopefully you'll want to jump in, selfcaresoulcaremastermind.com. You can join us. We have a couple weeks. If you know anybody that's interested in digging deeper and understanding the Hebrew roots of our Christian faith, please share it with them. If you go on that site, there's a whole page there that goes a little more into detail about what we're doing and what you get. And anybody can go on that and check it out. If you want to join us, you just click on there. It'll lead you to where you sign up and you register, and we'd love to have you a part of it. So excited. And we will be starting a private group as well, and we'll give you all the details for that. So we love you guys. Have a beautiful and blessed day. Enjoy these last 4 days of winter. Use this time to really connect to what is God going to be delivering you out of? What is the bondage on any level that has been in your mind, has been in your thoughts, that he's going to be taking you out of? Share it with us if you know. You don't have to, but trust me, if you put it out there, he will deliver, because that is our God. And he is a God that always comes through with his promises. And we can count that all the way. I'm not going to say to the bank, but we can count on it. Okay. Love you guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.